In this video, we'll learn about new products from Chief Buildings. So you guys have these great relationships with your customers. You have this full team. They got to be selling something. Your customers have to be buying something. Talk to me about your products.
Well, in the end, we are a manufacturer of engineered building systems. They're custom engineered. There's a term out there called pre-engineered. Doesn't exist anymore. Nothing's pre-engineered. Everything's custom engineered, tailored to a customer's specific needs. And our buildings can serve all kinds of uses. Everything from a small shop to airplane hangars, indoor practice facilities, manufacturing facilities, and the list goes on and on and on. So ultimately, that's what we do. We produce the structure for the building systems. We roll our own panels and the secondary framing and so on. So it's a full turnkey operation, again, in the 3 facilities Dave talked about.
And I know you talked earlier about your electrocoat, and that's unique in the industry, and that is one advantage that you have. I don't think a lot of people understand what that actually means or why it's so important. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand what it means. In the end, what we do is we take the steel members, all of our structural steel, we dip it in a tank that's got the primer in it. We electrify that tank, and the ions bond. The negative ion bonds with the positive ion. I'm not a chemist or a physicist. You get the picture, and you get a uniform depth primer that applies to that steel. We spray off any excess, and then we bake it in the oven just like cookies for 45 minutes or so. And it just does give a super durable, uniform, consistent look to the steel.
To ensure it's not rusting, right? That's the end goal?
That is the primary reason that we prime steel, to prevent the rust as it is being erected or out on the truck and so forth. But yes.
And the one thing I don't think we talked much about yet, but it's also steel is recyclable. A lot of people are talking in the industry of how do we be more green. And so I think that's one thing too that people don't talk about enough, is just how you can use steel more than once.
Absolutely. I mean, it's virtually 100% recyclable. And depending on the mix of a particular job, the portion of the amount of steel that comes from recycled product could be 60-70%.
And so we have all these people making all these different products. How many structures do you guys think you ship out in a year that's put up?
Yeah, it's reaching around 1,000, if I'm not mistaken, Dave. I think we're maybe even over that this past couple of years.
Yeah, it's right around the 1,000 mark. We hope to continue to grow that with our 3rd plant in Lancaster, South Carolina.
So in the construction industry, there's wood construction, there's steel construction, there's lots of different types. What gives metal construction an advantage?
Well, there are a few things. You mentioned sustainability. That's certainly one that we're I think it's very attractive to a lot of buyers. We are good at big spans. So when you start getting 50, 60, 70 foot wide, our steel can span that space a lot better than other modes of construction. But you also have the quickness of getting it erected. So our steel goes together, it's a giant erector set, and it goes together fairly quickly compared to a lot of other forms of construction. I don't know what you might add to that, Dave.
Well, I think the speed of construction, not just out in the field erection, but if you want to get a quote on a metal building, I mean, we can turn one around in 2 or 3 days, typically on most scopes of work. And then because we have all our engineering and detailing in-house, we can control the speed of all that. So the time frames versus going out and hiring an engineer separate or some different factions of that, we can produce something and you can get your return on your investment much faster on your building than you can with other types of construction.
Trailing off of that, many of our builders, and we work through a network of builders around the country, we talked about that, many of them have design build capabilities. So as Dave kind of alluded to, when you go hire an architect, you got that process of having all these drawings done and then putting it out on the street to get a low bid or whatever it is. But many of our builders have the capabilities of sitting down with a customer, determining what they really need, and we tailor the building to that specifically. And so that cuts out a lot of extra unnecessary design time, which obviously has a cost to it, and it accelerates the overall process.
And you talked about the turnaround time. And Dave, I know he had mentioned the robotic welder earlier, and I do believe that sets Chief apart from some of the competitors. But what is this robotic welder? What advantage does it really give you guys?
Yeah, so it's got a couple things. The quality of its welds, incredible. So you never have to worry about an employee not showing up from bowling the night before. So the welds their weld quality is great. It probably serves in place of 4 or 5 welders. Don't get me wrong, we would hire 4 or 5 welders tomorrow in addition to the robotic welder, but it really does something. And then the speed of what it does, the accuracy. So if our drafting department didn't detail something perfectly, it would actually recognize the error when the parts were on the beam. So it's a quality standpoint, it's a speed standpoint.
Yeah, and not the least of which is the safety consideration, because it's a lot less man handling, woman handling, which only opens the door for potential injuries. So we're always looking for ways to improve safety in our procedures, and the robotic welder certainly does that.
So we just touched on one, the robotic welder. You've touched on the primer that Chief has. What are some of the other pieces that sets Chief apart from your competitors? Like warranty, what are some of those other items?
Yeah, well, I think one thing that you find out there is that there are a lot of so-called manufacturers that they'll only make parts of the building, and then they'll source other parts from other places. So we are a turnkey manufacturer. We do have all of our engineering and drafting in-house. We don't outsource to other companies or even overseas, where you're finding a lot of other manufacturers doing that. But then we also manufacture all the steel parts and pieces in our plants. So we have total control of that process. Obviously enhances the level of quality and consistency across the board.
You just touched on equality. What are some of the quality programs that you have in place?
Well, the basic one we have is AC 472 MB. Do I have that right, Mike?
It's IAS AC 472. I always
So
get those
that's an accreditation that reviews all of our quality procedures and takes a look at them and says you're doing the proper things, you're going to have a quality product type of thing. We also do ultrasonic testing of our welds in some cases. We have a builder advisory council that offers suggestions on how we can make improvements to our quality from time to time, whether it's how we present our drawings for the people in the field, or how we have new products that might come out the line. So we have a lot of things, and I should not forget training. We collect information on any complaint we get, any case that comes through the door. Every week we sift through those cases and say, what's the learning moment here? Is it something we need to change in our processes, or is it a training issue? And so once a month we get together with all our staff and we review those, and we say, here's some things that we can learn from mistakes that we've made, or things that we can do better. So quality is just a theme that interwoven through everything we do in our organization, and it starts right when the contract comes. We have project managers that review the contracts, and so we don't want our customers ever to have a gotcha moment, like you didn't check a box mark. We want to make sure that you get exactly what you need in life, and so our project managers are trained to look at drawings and contracts and say, have you thought about this, have you thought about that, to make sure everything gets there. So everybody in our organization touches quality in some fashion.
The construction process, it's fraught with peril. There are plenty of opportunities for problems to come up. And so, tying in on what Dave was talking about, we do have issues happen in the field. We have a robust team of customer service representatives that are at the ready to be contacted, and their job is to dig in and immediately find out what the issue is and get it fixed, as soon as possible. And then we do track those cases, as Dave said, and look for patterns. We're always looking for opportunities to improve.
And so you talk about these quality products that you have from an external kind of source in your team, but you also utilize your customers themselves for a builder advisory committee. So how does that work?
Yeah, exactly. So we take 9 builders from across the country. They'll serve 3 years in this council. And what we're always looking for is perspectives, new perspectives, opinions, input on what kinds of things they think we're doing well, and looking for opportunities where we can continue to improve, whether it's in processes or products or those kinds of things. And they come from various backgrounds. So you could have an installer, building installer that is really focused on how the building goes together. You could have a general contractor where they're looking at the whole picture of how a project goes together. And so all those different perspectives are shared at a table, and we rotate these people out after they serve 3-year terms. So we're always looking for input from our builders, and we also conduct an annual builder review process every year where we go and actually talk to each and every builder and get their feedback. And we evaluate that criteria, and we share it obviously with Dave and our corporate officers and so forth. So always looking for feedback.
And I know you've touched on reasons why your builders choose Chief over anybody else, but if you each had to give your top reason, what would it be?
Well, I'm going to go back to that. I hope they think we care about their business. We want them to be successful as one of the top things, as why they would choose Chief as their vendor.
Yeah, I would echo that. You've seen such a change in the industry over the last 20 years in how manufacturers go to market, how they treat their customers, And I think that our consistency in how we approach relationships and how much we rely on them and celebrate them is something that clearly sets us apart from everybody else.
Well, you guys made the process seem very simple and streamlined and very compact. But I know there's so many different components to that. So if somebody wants more information that they didn't get here in our conversation, where should they go to get that information?
Yeah, I would, send them to their website, our website, first off, chiefbuildings.com. Lots of resources there, lots of information, maybe too much information, but there's a real simple process to, hey, would you contact me? I'd like to get a little more information about this. We'll make sure somebody gets in touch with them right away.
So Dave, last question to you. As we're looking forward into the future, what are you most excited for?
Well, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of things I'm excited for. Certainly that third plant down in Lancaster, making sure it gets off the ground and it's equal to the other plants. In general, I love watching the career pathways of our employees and how they're growing and succession planning in some fashion. And they'll be taking over my job, maybe Mike's job someday, to see that happen in Chief. And really, I can't go away from the bottom line success either, because we do share that with our employees, and that's part of the picture also. So it's not just, that's got to be a key component in it also.
Awesome. Well, there's so much exciting messaging out there. There's such great things happening in the construction industry and what you guys are doing with your team and the advancements in technology. So I know there's going to be a lot of success. So kudos to both of you, and just congrats on all the success that you've had in the past so far.
Okay, Beth, I think I have one question for Beth before we close out this session, and that is, how much do you think this building goes for per square foot that we're sitting in?
If off the top of my head, I kind of look $140 per square foot.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, you're welcome. Learn more about Chief Buildings at their website. The link is below.